further ado, I want to welcome to the podium Mr. Chucky L. Smiley.
I appreciate the warm welcome, everyone. It means a lot. I'm also grateful for all my friends and family that's online, that's obviously checking us out today, as well as my team from Coast Guard Intelligence. Appreciate all of you guys being in attendance. So I'm here to talk about keys to true leadership. I was able to glean a lot of this information through my time in the military, obviously, but then a lot of it I was able to acquire through serving those that are less fortunate and disadvantaged. So I'm going to highlight some of those. Next slide. Oh, actually, I guess I can come to the first slide now. Okay. So I want to begin with two revealing questions. How many of you truly desire to become a better leader? That's the first one. And the second one is, how many of you are willing to learn and embrace leadership principles to become a better leader? As you review those questions, I want you to think about another one. How many of you have had bad leaders? Non-introduction, you don't gotta raise your hand, just How many of you had phenomenal leaders? So we all agree that leadership affects us in some form or fashion, especially at work here, right? Inside every little boy is a man, and inside of every little girl is a woman. In the same way, a leader is trapped inside each one of you. You were born to lead, but you must become a leader. I'm not here to make you a leader, but I am here to expose the leadership qualities inside you. I entitled this message, Keys to True Leadership, because I'm hoping that this information will unlock the true leader inside of each and one of you. Everyone under the sound of my voice is a leader. The problem is most of us don't believe it, or we don't truly accept it to be true. I'm sorry, I like to walk a little bit, so I made room away from the mic, so I'm gonna try to stay right here so everyone can hear me online. But think about this. The commandant has influence, but so does the ladies that work down in fuel. They're all leaders, right? Now, they're in different industries and different fields, but they're just as influential in what they do. Especially for those of you that engage with them every day. Maybe not the commandant, but a lot of y'all go down to the fuel every day. And you've created relationships with those people. What about the people that are cleaning our bathrooms or cleaning your offices? Do you stop to say hi to them? Or do you just throw your trash at them and say, here, take this? I believe everybody in the world was born to fulfill an assignment. And I believe God created each one of us to solve a problem. There is something that God wanted to accomplish that required our very existence. Every one of us. None of us are an accident. None of us are here by mistake. Our place on this planet is related to an assignment that He had created long ago for each one of us. This makes us critical to the global plan. See y'all looking at that slide. And I'm glad you are. It's vital that we have true leaders within our ranks. If we don't, we will continue to have reports of sexual assault, harassment, hazing, bullying, retaliation, discrimination, and other harmful workplace behaviors. Does this sound familiar? Well, it should. All of these inexcusable incidents were highlighted by the commandant in her letter to the workforce. Some of the greatest leaders in history were products of crisis because they were placed in circumstances or under conditions that drew on their abilities that they knew that they didn't have. They weren't revealed yet. It was always there, but they discovered some things about themselves in the midst of pressure that they never knew that they had. Therefore, most true leaders are born in the furnace of crisis, and this crisis revealed who they were. I guess you can say every David needs a Goliath. The traumatic experiences that I was exposed to as a youth revealed the true leader inside of me. As a youth, I was raised by a single-parent household. My mother did a phenomenal job, or did the best she could, depending on if you like me or not. But we still experienced lack. And the hardships of growing up in a single-parent household were furthermore complicated by the drug-infested neighborhood that we lived in. Now, I can tell you, I never imagined that the adversity and the pain that I experienced during this difficult time in my life would fuel me and motivate me to serve others. Serve those who are disadvantaged, underserved, much like I was. I guess you can say it gave me a heart of compassion. Approximately 20 years ago, me and my best friend created the Extraordinary League of Gentlemen, a nonprofit that Marcus told you about that serves the needs of the community in various ways. First, it started off with what we would call Operation Give Back, or Operation Belly Full, where we'd find ways that we could bless those. Sometimes it would be gift cards to families, $100 gift cards so they could get dinners and lunches. And we really resource and learn how to fundraise. We started doing big gatherings, right? Where families could come and get bags of food with turkeys and stuffing and everything. Where we got to a point now where you figure we were doing ones and twos, so you never despise small beginnings, to 100 meals on last Thanksgiving. Same thing happened for our book bag giveaway. Started with just 50. And we got to a point where we were giving away 5,000, 6,000 book bags filled with school supplies to those in need. So our impact has grown significantly. Next slide. And this is the little fella that was molded by that furnace of crisis. Gratefully, our impact in the community now has resulted in us winning over 8 awards from the national, state, and local levels. Personally, I was recognized by Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, Boyd Rutherford at the time, as a recipient of the 2nd annual Black History Month Community Leaders Award. And then back in 2016, I was awarded as the DHS Secretary Award winner for volunteer service. So let me tell you this. I can tell you that leading in my role in ELOG was challenging, but yet very rewarding. Let me explain why. Most of y'all are in positions of leadership because of the military rank that you are, right? You're gonna have people that fall under you. So they're gonna have to follow your command because that's the law of the land. But how do you incentivize people that aren't being paid, that you don't really have formal control over? How do you get the most out of people when they're given their free time? When you're a really good leader and you don't have the resources, you have to be really innovative. That's what I learned. So how did I do it? Next slide. I did it through inspiration. The affliction that I experienced really revealed my purpose for being sent to this world, and I was able to convey that to everyone I encountered. On the left, you'll see Governor Wes Moore. I had a chance to meet him at a community event earlier this year. And then on the right, you'll see previous secretary and the current secretary when I was awarded my DHS award. Through my affliction and adversity I endured, I learned what I was sent to this earth to do. And it gave me a different perspective on life. Additionally, it revealed my purpose. And once I revealed that purpose, it was all about the spirit of excellence. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Next slide. My desire is that you will get knowledge, understanding, and wisdom as it pertains to the principles of true leadership. Knowledge, information about what makes a true leader. Understanding, comprehension of true leadership principles. And then wisdom, the application of leadership principles in your own life. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, stay there. I'm sorry, I apologize. Going too fast. Who knows who that individual is in the picture with Steph Curry? if you know his name? All right, if you don't know his name, who do you think he is? His physical trainer. Everybody say that? His strength coach, right? So I'm not trying to be funny, but here's an example of having the information, the comprehension, but lacking the application. He has one of the most finest, refined athletes in the world, endurance, shooting, whatever. But yet he has not implemented the same skills and training into his own life. Don't be so quick to laugh, because all of us are just like Mr. Payne. His name is Brandon Payne, in an area of our life. Next slide. Definition of leadership by Dr. Miles Monroe. I'm gonna let you guys read that. I know you all are phenomenal readers, so I'm not gonna insult your intelligence in that fashion, but what I want you to realize is that Dr. Miles Monroe, who is now deceased, is one of the most influential leaders that I've come across in my lifetime. Not only was he a pastor and a renowned author, but he actually was a mentor and highly influential to different governments and kingdoms all over the world. And that's what he pretty much is most known for, his leadership capacity and how he trained leaders. They would literally shut down the government when he came in certain countries, so he could train all their leaders. And he shared a powerful testimony of how they would, at the end of the ceremony or at lunchtime, come up to him and they would be weeping because they realized that some of the defaults and some of the lack of leadership qualities they didn't possess. And that was renowned to me. So I'll let you read that again, once again. So let me carry on. I believe the problem is that leadership has become a role one plays rather than one that leads. Contemporary leaders are attempting to divorce their personal lives from their public responsibilities and their personal standards from their public lives. To many, leadership is an act and not a calling. Therefore, when they are in these offices, they act a certain way, but when they lead double lives. This is a contradiction to true leadership. Leadership is not a technique. It's a style or an acquisition of skills, but it's more of a manifestation of a spirit. Moral defects, abuses of power, privilege and trust, misuses of resources, corruption and hypocrisy have become associated with leadership today, perhaps more than any other time in history. The most important quality of true leadership is the spirit of leadership. All humans possess the spirit of leadership, but only those who capture the spirit of leadership ever become truly effective leaders. Next slide. True leadership is self-discovery. I discovered that the thinking of a leader is what separates him or her from her followers. It is important to understand that leadership is not an exclusive club for the elite few who were born with it. Every human has the instinct and capacity for leadership, but most do not have the courage or will to cultivate it. All humans possess the potential to lead, but most have lost the passion of true leadership. Next slide. What you believe about yourself creates your world. No human can live beyond the limits of his or her beliefs. In essence, you are what you believe. Let me break this down for you. Your beliefs are a product of your thoughts. Your thoughts create your beliefs. Your beliefs create your convictions. Your convictions create your attitude. Your attitude controls your perception, and your perception dictates your behavior. Next slide. True leadership has more to do with mindset than methods and techniques. No leader can rise above his or her attitude. Leadership has little to do with aptitude. Having a PhD doesn't make you a leader. Being promoted to master, chief, or captain doesn't make you a leader. Last Saturday, Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes, what did they do on last Saturday? Anybody know? I heard it. Somebody say it again? They beat TCU. Where was TCU last year at the end of the college football season? They were in the national championship game. So Coach Prime, in his very first year, with a team that only won one game last year, beat a national contender this year in his first game. I think he earned his paycheck already, right? He has another 10 or 12 more games to go. But I think the reason I wanted to highlight Coach Prime is because of the attitude in which he embraces. The way he was able to motivate, and I don't even want to call it motivate because you can lose motivation. It was inspiration. He has every person in that organization believing that they can be national champions, not later, but right now. Most of these kids he pulled out of the portal who were injury prone or didn't have the grades or whatever the case may be, and life for them seemed like it might not be over or might be over and they might not get another chance. But he recruited the right people. And the right people had the right attitude. Leadership attitude is the key to leadership confidence. Leadership attitude is contagious. Every interview that Coach Prime did this week, he kept saying, hey, they believe. I believe, so they believe. That's contagious. Leadership attitude determines the atmosphere in the organization. Now, as we watch them for the rest of the season, let's see how their atmosphere continues to change. He said in one of the interviews this week, he said, I had a couple kids on my team that still didn't believe, but I can tell you, after we beat TCU, they were all sold in. I can get any one of them to run through a wall for me. Can we say the same about our leaders here in the Coast Guard? Can we say the same for all the people that we encounter every day? Most people we call leaders are not true leaders. They are professional manipulators that wield power. Their goal is just to find an advantage that serves them, not the other way around. Next slide. I put these principles up here, and I'm definitely going to go over them this time because I think it's so important for us to understand the principles of true leadership. True leadership is not about control, it's about service. Once again, it's not about power, but it's about empowering. How many times have you heard, hey, he's a great leader? I've heard that a lot of times. I'm sure you have as well. But I want to know is how many great leaders has he made or she made? Leadership is not about manipulation, it's about inspiration. Leadership is really not about people, it's about finding your purpose. Like I said before, it's about self-discovery. And true leadership is about becoming more than just doing. Next slide. Why is the jungle the king, or excuse me, why is the lion the king of the jungle? Has anybody ever thought about that? I believe the answer is strictly attitude. See, the lion is not the biggest animal. They're not the strongest animal. They're not the fastest animal, nor are they the strongest, or excuse me, the smartest animal. But they believe they're all those things. And so every other animal in the jungle believes it as well. The key to the lion's leadership is attitude. Belief in the potential of his creative skills and resources for the benefit of his or her objectives. Confidence in his ability to achieve his objectives and accomplish his goals. Lastly, leadership is 80% confidence and 20% skill. I didn't believe that at first, though, that last one, until I realized the type of leaders that we have at certain organizations, and I'm not necessarily in the military per se, because we groom those folks, but look out in the private sector. Look at Elon Musk. He's not necessarily smarter than everybody that works for him, while he is smart, but it's his confidence. And other leaders that you'll find that are CEOs. They're managing the folks that have the brilliance and intelligence. And it may not always be them, but they have a confidence from knowing they can lead these organizations. All right, now let's go into our case study. Next slide. For our case study, we're going to look at the intriguing life of a Jewish man by the name of Daniel. At an early age, Daniel was taken into captivity by the Babylonians in approximately 604 BC. And he and his citizens of Judah were captives for over 70 years. During this time, though, Daniel served in prominent positions within the government, which is really unreal. Because typically when another king came into power, he would kill off everybody else because he couldn't trust them necessarily. But there were some character traits that Daniel embodied that made him such an influential person that these powerful leaders had to have him around. Next slide. The most valuable component of leadership is not power, position, influence, notoriety, fame, talent, gifting, dynamic orator, persuasiveness, intellectual superiority, academic achievement, or management skills. It is simply character. And the person I believe that personifies this most in one person is Daniel. As I mentioned before, he served diligently in over 4 different kings, from the Babylonians to the Medo-Persian rulers of his time. When you examine Daniel's life, you will find 6 key character traits that we're going to cover, and the first trait is integrity. According to scripture, it says that there was no dirt that could be found against Daniel. His righteousness was truly legendary. Now, Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the entire kingdom. Think of it, a captive being brought into a kingdom. Now he has full leadership of the entire kingdom. Now, in one of the stories, it says that the administrators tried to find grounds to charge Daniel for his misconduct, but they couldn't find any at all. And this is what led to him being placed in the lion's den. They could find no corruption because he was so trustworthy, neither corrupt nor negligent in his duties. Next slide. The second trait is humility. Daniel gained notoriety for understanding dreams in his youth, and so being the only person that could interpret these dreams was very troubling for the leaders and his son at the time, which soon was going to be the next leader of Babylon. In each of these interpretations, Daniel never took credit. Instead, he gave honor to God for blessing him with the opportunity to interpret any of these dreams. So an opportunity that he really could have shown that, hey, I'm the man and I did this, I did that. He continued to humble himself. Do we find that same leadership quality in our leaders today? Particularly our politicians. Next slide. Daniel's entire life can be characterized as courageous. He had the courage to advise 4 different kings, and he never wavered when they broke the law, and he had to when he was considered to have broken the law, and he had to enter the lion's den. And if you're not familiar with the story, basically, the administrators that were in charge at the time tried to get Daniel into a place of compromise because he prayed every day. So they made a law that said, hey, you can only pray to the king at the time for an entire month. Well, Daniel wasn't going to pray to the king. He was going to continue to pray to his higher being. And so they caught him. That was the only way they were able to find anything negligent against him. When they caught him, they placed him in the lion's den. And as you know the story, he was able to sleep peacefully throughout the night, and the lions didn't touch him or hurt him in any form or fashion. Daniel was probably in his 80s when he was thrown to the lions. But did you know, even from a very early age, he demonstrated this courageous spirit? And we're going to cover some of that in the next one. Next slide. The fourth trait is sacrifice. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the Babylonians at the time, his mind was troubled and he couldn't sleep. It said, so he summoned the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and astrologers to help him interpret this dream. None of them in the entire kingdom could interpret the dream, except for one. He was so enraged that no one could interpret it that he created a decree to kill everybody, essentially. All these folks that considered themselves wise, the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, if they weren't able to tell or explain his dream. So David, being the man that he was willing to take up a personal sacrifice, and he said, hey, give me just a few days to see if I can figure out what the dream is. And if you're familiar with the story, David was able to save the lives of all those that were scared at the time because he was able to effectively decipher what the dream was, saving all those people's lives. But he wouldn't have been able to do it if he wasn't willing to be a sacrifice for those that were surrounded around him. Lastly, the fifth trait, I have one more. The fifth trait is excellence. Next slide. Daniel exhibited a spirit of excellence in all that he did. In fact, he gained the trust and confidence of 4 different kings that appointed him as like a strategic advisor for their respective kingdoms. Daniel is renowned for his wisdom and intelligence. The Babylonians had a practice of making all of their captives pass a 3-year Babylonian course in language and literature. And it said that Daniel and the other captives, his close friends, were found to be 10 times wiser than all the other magicians and enchanters in the whole kingdom. Daniel's wisdom alone makes him a legend in his own time. Even when Nebuchadnezzar's son had a terrifying dream or vision, guess the first person they called? Called Daniel. Scripture says that Daniel was found to have insight and intelligence and wisdom like that of the gods. Powerful. In each of the different kingdoms that he was in, they wanted to explain why he was chosen. King Nebuchadnezzar found favor with Daniel because he was able to interpret his dream. Likewise, his son Belshazzar, also the handwriting on the wall, which is a powerful story. If you don't know about it, definitely should read it. But once again, Daniel, the only one, was able to interpret this story. Darius the Mede, it said that he chose Daniel because of his extraordinary spirit and character. And then finally, Cyrus the Persian, for reasons unbeknown, they said the only reason that we can find that he chose Daniel is because of the great resume that he had previously. Character is the foundation on which a leader builds their life. It all begins with character, because leadership operates on the basis of trust. People will follow a leader only so far as they trust them. Character communicates credibility, harnesses respect, creates consistency, and earns trust. Next slide. And that concludes my speech on today. I appreciate you guys and your attention. Is there any questions? I'm not going to promise I know the answer, but we'll try.
Thank you, John. Good day, sir. Appreciate the time. Thank you so much for the lecture. Commander Vera, OPM 1. My question kind of goes back to one of your opening comments, sir. When it comes to members of our organization potentially coming across poor leaders, and how, in your experience, have you seen others, or how have you overcome interactions with poor leaders in previous organizations that have tainted one's experience in their careers? So much so that later on in the career they think about either retiring early or separating early because of the fear of running into another poor leader. What advice would you give those members that have struggled with poor leadership? And what advice would you give to those poor leaders?
Very good question, and we'll try to attack that one, but that is difficult. But encountering that myself, I would say that one of the strengths of that it's our Coast Guard and not their Coast Guard, or this is my unit and I appreciate that. Or even a better example, my basketball team this year that played in MLK. A lot of us were new to the team, but we bought into what Coach Jadell Brown was trying to do. And what we bought into was the camaraderie and the friendship and the brotherhood that it was going to create. And that reciprocated well on us on the court. And so we were able to have that confidence in each other. So I would say, yeah, mentorship, finding it outside of what you currently have, but then also internally looking at yourself. You can't blame everything on somebody else. We have a little bit of ownership as well. Hopefully I was able to answer your question, sir.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, y'all, this is my boss, so I'm trying to...
I'm going to adjust this so it's a little shorter. Mr. Smiley, I just want to say thanks for presenting this afternoon. It's really takes a lot of effort and courage to come before a group that prides itself, in the Coast Guard of embodying leadership, and it's just so important to have the conversation about leadership because that's how we really learn. So thank you for doing this. My question is, one of the topics that we speak about a lot is the concept of servant leadership. And I know you're well familiar with that topic, but let me throw a little bit of a different twist on it because I'd like to get your thoughts. Is servant leadership something that is for all times, or is it something that is only for certain times? We operate in a lot of different environments in the Coast Guard in peace and in war. So what's your perspectives on that?
I'm glad you answered that, and I had that discussion with Captain Kennedy before, and I truly believe that servant leadership is something that we would do at all times. So not only am I a servant at work in the position that I'm filling, because I want to do that to the best of my abilities, but when I get home and my wife tells me I need to wash dishes and do the laundry, I'm also serving her in that fashion. Now, there's responsibilities that need to be met regardless, right? I have a responsibility of taking care of my household here by working and hopefully staying gainfully employed, Mr. Rogalski. But also when I get home, there has to be that same balance that I'm also have the same willingness to serve her and my kids. That on the weekends, I'm not going to take up all my time just watching football and watching the Ravens. But I'm also going to spend time with them. So I believe that servant leadership is something that we should encompass 24/7. So while I was in the military and I decided, the main reason, obviously, I know I kind of highlighted what we do through my nonprofit, but while I was in the military, we really started my nonprofit. And this is what I realized that really beckons to your question, sir. I saw what I was doing for my nation and I was proud of that, but what I saw what was going on back home still hurt in my heart. And because I felt as though there weren't enough organizations that were doing something for those that were disadvantaged and economically not able to provide, I said, what can I do? And so that's when we started serving. And at the time, I never envisioned or even had a roadmap to what it looked like of creating a nonprofit. It was just me serving in a capacity that could help others. And so even while I was in the military, coming back from deployments or taking the weekend off or taking a couple of days off so we could host some of these events, is because I still saw a need that I felt as though that I was so passionate about that I could affect. So I believe that servant leadership can be done 24/7, sir, to answer your question. Any others? All right, so this is my big boss, so make sure
Chuck,
you comment after my response.
yeah, tremendous presentation, and I think every one of us knows that you live it and you breathe it. We all see it that work with you. So thank you for speaking, not just what you're saying, but what you're doing. My question is a little bit of a twist on Kurt's. And one of the things that embodies you is that passion, and you see it, anybody that knows Chuck. How do you, though, and you gave those great characteristics, how do you kind of keep those going during the day? Because all of us don't have great days all day. So are there little kind of check from a leadership standpoint, how do you sort of check yourself to make sure you're embodying those attributes that you gave us? Or how do you bridge some of the more challenging times and sort of keep those at the forefront?
Right, so me personally, I also draw a lot of energy from my colleagues and my coworkers. So one of the first things I want to do is realize, and you know, personally, I know when I start my day, I want to see how I'm inspiring others as well. So even when things get tough, I want to make sure that even during those times, I'm trying to personify an image that is not stressful, but more empowering in nature. Let me give you an example. One of my colleagues that just joined our team is Sheila. She used to work, and she knows I share this example all the time. Before she joined our team in our strategy and engagement office, she used to work in our front office. And so, me walking out one day to get breakfast or something like that, she said, "Chuck, I don't know what it is about you, but it never seems like you have a bad day." And that was encouragement to me, because I feel as though what if each one of us started off our day like that? Or what if we carried ourselves in such a manner that we're always upbeat, always energetic? How those same type of characteristics could rub off on somebody else, right? Let me give you another example. I went to the bank on this Saturday, and normally I don't go to the bank because that's kind of old-fashioned. I can do most stuff on my phone, just saying. But my bank in Baltimore is a smaller bank that I wanted to use. So I had to go up there anyway to get some money out, and I was transferring some money. Well, when I got in there, one of the customers said to the teller, she was like, "Why aren't you smiling?" Keep in mind, this is a customer saying that to a teller. And the teller said, "Oh, I really don't smile like that." But you're in a place of business. Your entire business is dictated on your customer service. So I truly believe that if I can harness that spirit of Chick-fil-A, and y'all know what I'm talking about, that how many people will be positively affected by me carrying myself like that every single day. And that's the same leadership qualities and principles that I teach the youth that I mentor, as well as my colleagues that work for me as well through my business. So that's the way that I do it, sir. I feel as though I think the personal way that I carry myself through that spirit of excellence and trying to do the best that I can, and also encouraging those that I work with each and every day, it's gonna make life that much easier, especially at work. Because you never know who's dealing with some stuff that you don't see behind closed doors. One of the failures that I put in my part, that I have that weigh against me, is I had several people that I know that commit suicide. Not only when I was in the Army, but also as a civilian. And I always said, regardless of what I had going on, and as I look back on it, I don't know if there was anything I could have done. We weren't extremely close, but every time we had opportunities to engage, I still was upbeat and positive. But you still ask yourself, would it have been something I could have said or I could have done to help them change their mind or make them seek help or get help? And I know that's one of the things that we have in our military services, right? Suicide is huge. So what if you were to stop and ask somebody, "Hey, what's going on at home? How are you doing?" Aside from, "Hey, did you get that work done that I assigned you on yesterday?" But if we truly looked at them as the people that that they are, and we respect them for what they're bringing to the table, how much closer would our working environments be? Our relationships with one another. Something I think about, but any other questions?
Thank you. You answered the first half of my question about daily inspirations, and it appears that the people that you come across every day are your daily inspirations. But I recognize, and the reality is that may not be the same for other people. So my question for you is, how does a person who doesn't have the spirit that you have, that doesn't have the background that you have, how do we find our own daily inspirations? Because you mentioned earlier that leadership was a self-discovery. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you to impose that question to you. How does one find their own daily motivation to be that leader, particularly in the face of challenges, particularly the challenges of having to show up to this building every day?
Right. Well, I would say that once again, self-discovery is the biggest thing, right? So my motivations are me being able to provide for my family, provide a great living, thank you, U.S. Coast Guard. And some of the things we enjoy every single day, I'm very much appreciative of. I think we have to look internally and see what motivates you. And I don't know what that answer is, because everyone's motivations is different. Some people are motivated by the fact that they get to put that nice crisp uniform on every day, and that they're serving in a capacity where they're protecting their nation and protecting the homeland. Some people realize that it's bigger than them, right? It's not just about the nation, but we're doing something for the world. That we're maintaining stability, especially when it comes to commerce and borderways and all that good stuff. But what's important to you? I think each of us have to identify that vital, crucial thing. And it is going to vary for everybody. But that self-discovery is you looking internal. So sorry I can't answer that for everybody, but I can only answer it for me. But there's also so much that I can generate personally for myself as well. Like, being deployed, I had an experience where basically having incoming IDF, indirect fire, mortar, rockets, whatever. And in that moment where I had to have, I would say, one of my most courageous moments, seeing those rockets incoming, the only thing I could think about was how I could neutralize the threat and protect everybody around me. Even though I was a contractor at the time, I still felt like I was still in the military. And I still wanted to protect those lives around me. And so during that moment, the best thing we could do essentially with it was called a wide area persistent surveillance sensor. So it was a sensor that mounted on an aerostat or a balloon, like a big Goodyear blimp. And it cast down an array of cameras that you could also record back from. And so my main focus and my team at the time was to help try to neutralize exactly, or find out exactly, triangulate exactly where the IDF was coming from, and then report that information to the tactical operators at the time, or to the top. And with us being able to do it in such quick fashion, like within minutes, they were able to throw some fire at the enemy that was launching in on us, and we saved lives. Unfortunately, we lost a couple people, but think about if I was just gripped in fear and I wasn't able to maneuver the cameras and actually find where the threat was because I was so gripped. How many more people would have died? Keep in mind, the trailer that we were in, literally a Connex trailer, and I have a picture of it somewhere, one of the IDF literally exploded right outside of where that trailer was. So this wasn't like it was raining all around us and not on us. It literally was raining right on us. And we still were able, in the midst of fire, find where it was coming from, relay that information, and save. So I can tell you right then, my motivation was to save those around me and to save myself. I was thinking about getting back home. And my wife was pregnant at the time. And I was also focused on getting home and seeing that fourth child, or third child at the time. Any more questions?
All right, thank you.
Thanks again. I appreciate you.